112-6655. Mr. Roach, I believe you're going to call Mr. March.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor.
Do you solemnly swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Can you state your full name for us, please?
Full name is James March. Generally go by Jim. I don't know the middle initial.
Mr. March, can you give us a little bit of your background, especially as it pertains to computers and computer systems?
Yes. Well, I've had experience as a system administrator, user trainer, computer system documentation specialist going back professionally as far as 1984. I was doing that professionally up through 2000. Starting in 2003, I first became aware of some of the first reports on what was wrong with the Diebold election system specifically and electronic voting systems in general, and I began to study the available literature, and then got with a lady named Bev Harris who had obtained copies of the actual GEMS application, Global Election Management Software is what GEMS stands for. I began to write about it, get a copy of it, review it, kick the tires, look at the security, and I have essentially been involved in researching and writing about electronic voting systems close to full time, really, since 2005. Initially since 2003.
Do you belong to any national organizations whose goal it is to address security concerns?
Yes. I'm not representing these organizations in this matter, but I'm a member of the board of directors of Black Box Voting, a national 501c3 organization that deals with electronic voting issues. I'm a member of the board of Southern Arizona chapter of the ACLU, which has also at times expressed concerns on electronic voting issues. I'm the treasurer of the Pima County Libertarian Party, and I serve as the Libertarian Party appointee on the Pima County Election Integrity Commission, where I sit with Mr. Donahoe and some other people in this room.
Have you investigated, or investigated is maybe not the right word, have you observed Pima County elections protocol over the last decade or so?
Oh yes, I moved physically to Pima County in September of 2006. I first became aware of issues here in the summer of 2006 and visited shortly after the RTA race, when the concerns were first heating up over that May 16th, 2006 election.
All right. And did you have any involvement with any of the litigation over the RTA election?
Yes. I served as the technical advisor to Mr. Bill Reisner. He was the lead attorney for the Democratic Party. I have also served as Mr. Reisner's IT department. I maintain his file server and do his user support. For some side money, basically I fix a few people's computers around town, and Mr. Reisner is one of my oldest and best clients in that endeavor. I think that covers it.
In addition to observing Pima County elections, have you, as part of your decade-long work in this area, have you observed anywhere else?
Yes, I have been consulted to physically review on-site records related to elections in Memphis, Tennessee, Florida, 2 different counties, 3 different counties in California. I spent time in Washington State where I looked at elections there. I was involved in Black Box Voting's on-site review of the Diebold touchscreen product line in 2004 in Emery County, Utah. It was a rather, now that would be 2005, excuse me, which was a rather well-known report on how the TSX works. I believe I'm the only person in the country who's ever taken a screwdriver to both the Diebold original touchscreen product line, the TS, the new touchscreen product line, the TSX, and I've been poking around inside the guts of the optical scan units used here in Pima County. So I've had an opportunity to actually look inside and review the guts of all 3 of those systems.
All right. And are you an elector here in Pima County?
I am an elector in Pima County.
So you were here a little bit earlier when Mr. Donahoe was testifying?
Yes, I was.
All right. He also was talking his expertise are, would you say your areas of expertise and his are identical, or they overlap, or you are in a different area?
There's some slight differences. If I were to give an analogy, if we were both doctors, Mr. Donohoe would be a senior researcher at Johns Hopkins, and I would be a simple country doctor carrying a black bag around somewhere. So my experience is much more, call it street level, call it practical on-site realities. Mr. Donohoe's experience has been much more high level, much more scholarly, and much more theoretical, beyond my level.
All right. I don't want to necessarily spend time repeating the concerns he had.
Right.
Do you share those concerns?
I share every concern that he mentioned, yes.
All right. Are you aware with of the current Pima County practices that are used to try to ensure that Pima County elections are not tampered with?
Correct. Yeah, I'm well familiar with Pima County procedures.
And do you agree with Mr. Donohoe in the security weaknesses that he described?
Yes, I am, and I could name a few others.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, did he name all the possible ways that this could happen?
Well, no, and I'll just give you two examples real quick, if that's what you're looking for.
Sure.
Okay, I would be very concerned about how do you get information in and out of the central tabulator. Well, somebody mentioned that duplicate seals could be obtained. Normally, when you fire up the central tabulator computer, it does a fairly good job of tracking what you do on it. There's something called the Windows event log, and there's, if you're actually using the Diebold software, they have an audit log. Now, it can be edited, both of them actually can be edited, but it would be pretty easy to leave trails behind. Let me show you one really, really easy way to get around that, and why I brought my literal equivalent of a little black bag with me here. This cable I'm holding, let me unfold it and show you what I'm looking at. It's called a rescue cable. It's something that, Your Honor, let's say that your personal laptop broke one day and somebody ran over the car. But the hard disk inside may be good and you want the data off it. Well, I would take this cable out. It allows me to connect your hard disk to whichever kind of plug it happens to be. More modern ones, most likely this one. And on the other end, plug it into whatever other computer you want to receive that data. So this is a way of connecting to a hard drive without using the computer that the hard drive is in. So one really easy way to get large amounts of data into and out of the central tabulator would be to buy a duplicate seal, which is one purchase order away, or pay by credit card from home. Pop the case open, plug this into the central tabulator's hard disk, and read and write whatever data or programming you want into and out of that drive from a laptop would be perfect. Now, if you did that, you would bypass any audit procedures, any audit log, any Windows event log that's on that computer, because that computer is not running. You're just reading to and writing from the hard disk. So this kind of thing is available for 25 bucks. It's a computer technician's tool, but it could be absolutely used to pull large volumes of data in and out of a central tabulator in a very short period of time. It's a very high-speed cable and wouldn't leave any electronic traces behind inside the computer.
All right. If you were able to gain physical access to the computer, could you insert any sort of communication devices such that you could then modify any result you wanted?
That's an interesting question. But by way of analogy, NASCAR has a very small museum somewhere. They don't make a lot of light of it, but it's a whole series of cheats that they have caught. They've caught extra fuel tanks inside the roll cage, hidden nitrous oxide lines, other things that race car teams have used to cheat. Well, the computer equivalent, if you were to pop the case open and just look at the inside of the central tabulator, it might look perfectly normal. But a Wi-Fi card or a Bluetooth wireless data adapter could be hidden under the motherboard. A power line data adapter could be hidden inside the power supply. There's a number of places inside that box where you could hide subversive communications items, if you will. Only a real tech inspection of the kind NASCAR does, where they get the screwdrivers out and start stripping it apart, would reveal that kind of thing. And if you were really creative, you might be able to hide circuitry of that sort, communications gear, inside some other innocuous looking board circuit board that where you couldn't easily tell even with screwdrivers. But it doesn't even matter because no tech inspections of that sort have ever been allowed of an election system that I know of. And my personal opinion is it's high time we do at some point. That's beyond the scope of this discussion, I guess.
Now, you're aware of the prayer for relief, the things that we have asked the court to order in this particular case?
Yeah, sure am.
And would the relief that we're talking about concerning random hand audits of the precincts, the vote-by-mail precincts, alleviate your concerns?
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about that. The mail-in votes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
And Mr. Roach, I understand everybody's excited about this, but if you could instruct the witnesses, let's try to maintain a question and answer.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Relax, Mr. Let's try to maintain a question and answer format rather than, again, the bully pulpit. That's not what we're here for.
All right. And so my question is, you described a number of different ways that people could flip an election. You heard Mr. Donahoe describe a number of ways. Have you still listed all the possible ways that somebody could fraudulently change the results of an election?
Not even close.
Would the relief that we are requesting here cover even the ones that you have not listed?
No, but they would cover some of the easier manipulations to make. That's the good news. The requests that you're making cover the easiest hacks, the easiest attacks, and that's worth doing.
All right. And how is it that that random hand count audit would cover the tax that we've discussed?
Okay, there's a big security flaw right now where the precinct optical scan machines, when you feed it a ballot, it does keep a running tally internally of how many votes it took in for each candidate and issue, and then it prints out a ticker tape of the state of that vote at that precinct before the data gets to the central tabulator where the manipulations become easiest. Okay? When you feed same kind of mail-in, same kind of paper ballot into the mail-in vote scanners, it keeps no individual record. When you scan a mail-in vote into the system overall, the only place that vote is recorded is at the central tabulator. So that is, the votes at the central tabulator, once they're there, are the easiest votes to manipulate, and you have no separate paper record of what those votes are, making it not only easy to manipulate, but risk-free to manipulate. Therefore, by expanding your proper hand count audits to the mail-in vote as well as the precinct vote, you at least give a potential election thief some pause for concern before modifying those mail-in vote results at the central tabulator.
All right. Now, you said you were also involved as the technical advisor in the previous RTA lawsuit?
In the various public records actions and the so-called reform suit that's now been bounced back up to the appeals court. That is correct.
All right. Now, as in part of the litigation concerning and we've used the term RTA, but it was the Regional Transportation Authority.
Correct.
And that was was there anything particular about that vote that would have made it the easiest to manipulate fraudulently?
Yes, there have been some mention in the previous round of discussion with Mr. Donahoe that, and I believe it was Mr. Jurkowitz actually brought this point up, that it's now mandated that we get copies of those databases as a result of the previous court actions, and we get to review them. Well, he's right, and we did review the databases from the RTA election. And what we found was specifically a pattern of repeated loadings of certain precincts' votes multiple times.
Wait. Let me back up. What do you mean? So, again, if we're talking precinct, you're supposed to, don't you just break down the memory card, plug it in, and load it, right?
Exactly.
So
we found instances of a particular precinct's memory cards being reloaded as much as 6 times. Usually it was only twice, but sometimes 3, 4, 5, and I think in at least one case, 6 different times, a particular memory card had been uploaded multiple times.
Could you tell from what you got as a result of your various lawsuits and public records requests what the reason for that uploading was?
There is no good explanation, but the one thing I do know about those repeated uploads, when we then asked for the tally lists for those same precincts, well, we actually asked for the tally lists for all precincts, excuse me, but when we reviewed the tally lists for those precincts that had been repeatedly uploaded, we found an extremely high rate of those tally lists for those precincts being missing. In other words, the appearance was that someone had uploaded precinct memory cards 2 or more times, replacing the first set of votes with the second or sometimes third, fourth, fifth set of votes, and then they had destroyed the paper record to go with it because the paper record was not locked away in a place where the election officials couldn't get at them, which was the official returns envelope.
So let me ask you for a second. You said tally lists. What is a tally list from a precinct?
Well, there's been at least 3 different names for this document kicked around. The name of the document from Arizona Revised Statutes is tally list. It's a complete listing of who won and lost and how many votes each candidate and issue took in at a particular precinct. The Arizona Revised Statutes election section tends to call it a tally list. The Pima County Election Integrity, the Pima County Poll Workers Manual calls it something else. And if I recall right, they call it the AccuVote, so they use the brand name of the voting machine, the the AccuVote tape. So that's the end of day ticker tape of who won and lost and how many votes they took in. A third name for this thing has been poll tape, used by the county. But the most legally valid term that I know of, based on the Arizona Revised Statutes, is tally tape.
All right.
It's the same document, all 3.
Are you familiar with the Pima County Poll Workers Manual?
I've reviewed it, yes.
All right. May I have first witness, Your Honor? Sure. I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as plaintiff's number 1. And do you recognize this document?
Oh, yeah. I've mostly seen online copy, in other words, the original PDF. But yes, I am familiar with this document.
And is that the Pima County Manual for 2012's election?
Yes, it certainly appears to be.
All right. And does that give the instructions to poll workers about what they should do with the official and unofficial returns envelope?
Correct.
All right. What page is it in the Pima County Poll Workers Manual that describes the things that they're supposed to put in the unofficial?
Well, that would be page 63, bottom half of the page, essentially. Under the general heading of closing the polls, there's packing the unofficial envelope.
All right. And so what are the Pima County poll workers, according to that manual, told to pack in the unofficial?
Well, there's a number of items, but the one we're talking about in this case, I believe, is the item number 2, put the first copy of the AccuVote election results report.
And let me back up for a second. AccuVote election results report. Are you familiar with that term as a term that's used in the GEMS system?
Yes, I am. The GEMS system calls that a poll tape.
Okay. And does it refer to the same thing that you were discussing earlier, a list of the votes for and against everybody that was voted on that?
The only thing that could possibly refer to in the Arizona Revised Statutes is the tally list.
Okay. Now, have you also looked on to, or can you find the page where the Pima County Manual instructs the poll workers for 2012 on what to put in the official?
Yeah. There's a section titled Packing the Official Envelope, and that's on page 71.
Is there a requirement in there that the poll workers put a copy of the AccuVote election results report report into the official returns envelope?
No, there is not. That's significantly missing.
Now, going back to your investigation of the 2006 RTA election,
Yeah.
did the lack of having the poll tapes, tally lists, AccuVote election results report in the official returns envelope hamper your ability to test if somebody had tampered with that election?
Yes, it killed us. It eliminated our ability to cross-reference what the precinct machine thought was going on, which is a much smaller, simpler computer that's harder to attack. We couldn't cross-reference what that machine thought was going on election night, as opposed to what the central tabulator thought was going on. The central tabulator's copy of the data is extremely easy to manipulate. And I can give you one brief example. At one point, Black Box Voting hired an animal trainer with a chimpanzee and taught the chimpanzee how to edit the data on the central tabulator. We literally hired a chimp to do it.
All right. Now, going back, couldn't it just be the 2006 election? You said you got the poll tape or the tally list from the unofficial vote, and a large number of them were missing. Couldn't that just be, you got a lot of moving parts in an election, you have volunteer poll workers, just some people forgot to put the poll tapes in or didn't follow the rules?
Mr. Roach, I'm not a statistician, but I can tell you that the correlation between reloaded memory cards at a particular precinct and the tally list being gone, missing, at a particular precinct was extremely statistically significant, well up over 90%. It appeared that someone had systematically destroyed the paper trail behind those precincts that they had re-uploaded. That is the strong appearance that we saw in the data in front of us.
Okay. Were there continued concerns based on all the information that you got that there's a potential that the RTA election had been fraudulently altered?
Yes, sir, and I can give you one very short example.
Please.
On election night, there were observers in the room, and one of them is here with us. He just walked in. It's Ted Downing, was physically present and took a photograph of the room. I assisted in looking at that photograph and identifying an open book that had been used by the central tabulator's operator. And that book was titled Microsoft Access Advanced Programming. Now, that told me that somebody was committing a crime. And I can explain that if you
Yeah.
Well, I have studied the federal voting system certification process extensively since 2005. I know there are rule books inside and out. Voting systems do have to be federally checked out. Now, there are problems with that checkout process. I would say it's not adequate, but there is a checkout process. Microsoft Access has never been certified as an election tool. If you're using Microsoft Access to look at the data in a Diebold/Dominion/ whoever else has bought them of late, if you're looking at that data with the Microsoft Access tool, you're breaking every certification law at the federal and state level, because this state requires federal certification of any voting system technology before we choose to use it. So if he was using Microsoft Access to get to that data, that's the easiest way to tamper with the data. There's other ways, but that's the easiest. And he had the Microsoft Access Advanced Programming Manual open on his desk, and he admitted it a few weeks later to me in person, the same gentleman named Brian Crane.
Now, let's go back.
Mr. Roach, let me interrupt here. As I indicated, set aside 2 hours. We're at 1 hour and 55 minutes. I'm going to give you more time. I'm going to give Mr. Jurkowitz more time. But we're getting to a point of redundancy. Right. So if we can move along here, I think everybody would appreciate it.
Okay. One question. My understanding is from talking to people is there is an actual video that overlooks the central tabulator.
Yes.
All right, were you involved with what Mr. Donahoe described, requests to see who had accessed the computer during the 2006 RTA election?
Yes, I was at the forefront of the attempts to get that video, and I was the one that was told by Mr. John Moffett that the video was no longer available. And the delays were caused by people on vacation.
Mr. Marsh, you're going to have to just answer Mr. Roach's question.
Sorry.
We're going to be here all night.
Sorry.
So, stick with the questions.
Sorry.
You said you were told by John Moffett that the videotape was no longer available?
It had auto-erased, correct.
And had you talked to him or anybody in the election department before then? And if so, how many times asking to see the video?
I was bugging him over a period of 20 days, and then he finally broke the bad news to me.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Jurkowitz.
Just briefly, Mr. March, are you aware that after the RTA litigation, the parties had an opportunity to come back and report any anomalies to Judge Miller? Were you aware of that?
I'm not specifically aware of that.
And were you aware that the Attorney General seized the RTA ballots and counted them?
That I'm aware of.
And were you aware that no statistical significant difference was found between the computer count and the hand count?
I am not aware of that because I know of a 4-precinct discrepancy, 4 uncounted precincts.
No further questions.
Mr. Roach.
No, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. March. You may step.